This is the ESP LTD Snakebyte. It's the James Hetfield Signature Edition, and if you're a fan of Metallica, this guitar really needs no introduction. This is probably one of the coolest guitars that I own. It's one of the guitars I get the most questions about from beginners and typically intermediate players. With more and more brick and mortar stores closing up, the opportunity to play one of these before you buy one becomes more and more difficult. So in this video, I'm going to highlight 5 things that are absolute must-knows before you buy one. Let's dive in. So a quick note about this. This is the LTD version. Unfortunately, can't afford an ESP version myself. With that said, for the purposes of this video, the specs we will be discussing are the same between the two guitars. So the first thing we're going to talk about with this guitar may be obvious in looking at it here. It's not really obvious when you see James play it, but this guitar is huge. Like, I am 6 foot tall, 170 pounds. I'm definitely not small, but I'm not a big guy either. And this guitar really kind of dwarfs me. And what's interesting is I feel like if you were like 5'2", 130 pounds, or a smaller person, it's probably going to look more like the guitar's playing you. So this is something that may not be overly obvious when you see James play it. And it's one of the reasons I recommend that you actually play this guitar first, is that it's really large. And the other thing to consider would be, if you're going to be playing in small clubs or confined spaces, you can be whacking this thing on everything because it is really big. The second thing you should know about one of these guitars before you purchase one is that it is a Gibson scale, which is a 24.75 scale. And that is the distance between the saddles here on the bridge and the nut. The reason why this is important is because the scale of the instrument can affect both the tone and playability of the guitar. Different scale lengths have different benefits, and the benefit to the Gibson scale length is that the tone is a little fatter, a little wider of a signal, because you don't have quite as much tension on the string because the distance is shorter. That said, it's also easier to bend strings because, again, we have less tension. If you consider the Fender scale, which is a 25.5, you have more distance between the bridge and the nut, which gives you a little tighter string. The benefit to that is it's actually easier to pick faster because there's less movement of the string because more tension. Personally, I'm more of a fan of the Fender scale. I like the more tension on the string, but really it's a subjective call, and it's the kind of thing that I was willing to overlook for this instrument. The third thing you should know about this guitar is that it's only 22 frets. This is important if you plan on playing lead guitar or plan on playing some of Kirk's solos or other solos that require that extra frettage. You don't have it here, and it makes sense because really this is designed for a rhythm guitar player by a rhythm guitar player, and you're typically not up in these higher frets. But I still feel the need to mention it because a lot of beginners and intermediate players may not be looking out for that. The fourth thing you should know, the back of the neck is glossy, and I know this really bothers some people. For me, it doesn't matter at all. It's never mattered, but I know there are people who just simply will not buy a guitar that has a glossy neck. If you're in that camp, there's a couple things you can do. You could definitely sand this down and make it smooth if you really wanted to. Personally, that's not something I would do after spending $1,500 on a guitar, but you know, if you're that big of a fan and you're into that type of neck, maybe you would go that route. But either way, it's something you should know before you purchase one of these. And lastly, the fifth thing you should know about this guitar before you buy one is that it has extra jumbo fret wire on it. This is one of those things that I think most people like, but if you're averse to an extra jumbo fret, you're really not going to like this. There's a lot of advantages to extra jumbo frets, including really just being able to move across the fretboard smoother, in my opinion. I think the one knock would be it gets a little crammed when you get higher up here. But again, this is a rhythm style guitar meant to play rhythms. So that's really not going to be an issue if that's the reason you're buying it. But from what I can tell you with personal experience, extra jumbo frets simply make the guitar easier to play, easier to fret, and really make it easier to bend notes. But if you happen to be in the camp where you don't like them, this may not be the guitar for you. So now that I've outlined 5 things you should probably know about this guitar, maybe I should do a video of 5 reasons why you should buy one, because I could probably list 30. This guitar is really one of the favorite instruments that I own in the lot. I probably play it more than any other guitar that I have, and there's just something about it that feels like an absolute monster. So if you want to know more about this guitar, including a review of the Hetfield Master Chords, be sure to check out this video right here. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to sub the channel because I do have a lot of Metallica content, including lessons and guitar reviews. If you have any questions, by all means, leave them in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.